Hello and welcome back to module number 3. Before we will start, I'd like to apologize. I made a mistake posting the wrong name of the hurricane. It happens to me. Um, Hurricane is not my favorite subject, and I am sometimes a little afraid of it. And so the, the mistake is due to the fear that I have from a hurricane. I hope it will not happen again. So let's start. We are going to do a short review of the module number 1 and 2, and then we're going to talk about today a little bit about color theory, and I'm going to introduce in the end, I'm going to introduce Adobe Illustrator. Why is that? We learn how to, with Tableau, we learn how to convert data into a visual map, but the issue that some of us will encounter in the future is that the quality of the end product is not clear. Example, there is no title, there is no additional elements, and so I'm using Adobe Illustrator, which has been in the market for a long time, as my companion to add more or apply more uh, aesthetic into your work. So let's start with what we have covered so far. In our textbook, chapter 1, he talks about 13 principles of visualization that encoded relationship with data. And so he discussed all those components, and I will go very fast on those 13, and I will try to make the case that when we are doing those type of analysis, it's really nice to have a visual representation that will be able to capture that. A comparison. Uh, Comparison is a really a good analysis that is often used, and when you use visualization uh, is really powerful way to communicate the comparison that you are looking for, oranges versus apples. And the issue is when no interaction is more useful than comparing values and the patterns in the data. So those are the issue. Example, in this comparison, there is no, it's only the visual of the physical apple and the physical orange. We do not give any comparison example, the amount of sugar that each fruit hold or the nutrient it holds. So this is something that we need to start thinking about when we are trying to compare things and try to visualize it in a more comprehensive way. And again, this is the issue of adding more dimensions to the analysis, and by doing that we are able to sort the process of arranging the data into meaningful order in order for us to have the idea of the visual that will help us sort the data into it. So the idea of sorting the data is also meaningful. We start in this class, we started with maps, and my objective was that using maps you are able to show uh, quite clearly how it reflects on a country or a state, and in this case it will allow us to demonstrate how the comparison can be made. Adding variables is what one of the most important element, and this is a tricky one because uh, when you have a set of data you cannot just add variables as you like. You need to be very, the data and the variables has to match, and this is something that I will try to give you directions how to not adding just variables as you wish, but that has to be matched to the data. So we are always looking for the interaction between the variables and or the attributes of those variables, and the idea of adding more variables into the analysis, and we will see it quite clearly when we learn about open source R and ggplot2, is that adding no more, not one, analyzing not only two variables, but adding the three or four variables add to the overall performance of the visualization to have a stronger case, a stronger visual that will make your argument or your findings stronger. Highlight is another element that is really important and can be done quite easily in visualization. Allowed us to focus on what you as the creator of the visualization want us to do. And so the idea here is, again, the visualization help us to get the attention of the user, something that is sometimes is really hard. Data sorting or data organization is a common way of getting get data into groups, get the data in sorted data based on example age, professional or income or height, or old age. And so the idea here is that, again, sorting the data is a really important way for us to do that. Expression also allowed us to do to highlight what it means, and we sometimes change the way it sort the data based on the model that we are using, and we will see that throughout the semester how can a better model can fit better way for us to do that. One of the things that I really think this is the main issue that I like to highlight is that we often pick one type of visualization and stick with it. And according to our textbook, it's better to test the data in different type of visualization just to make sure that we cover all the points, we explore all the points in order for us to make sure that we fit the other principle or the other findings. So the other four principles: zooming, rescaling, uh, details on demand, and annotation and bookmarks are part of it, and I will come back to it later on in module number 4. But now I want to focus one of the things that I saw from the assignment is that you started to pay attention to colors, and colors is part of the visualization. This is part of our vocabulary, and in order for us to create a good visualization, we have to have a color schema in order for us to do that. Van Gogh is a very famous painter. If you are not familiar with it, I highly recommend that you will try to search Van Gogh paintings. And again, I want you to look not at the overall what he tried to capture, but the color schema that he uses and how he played it or play with it to his composition. So color is the aspect of things that is caused by different quality of light that been reflected on the object that we are trying to color. And so one of the things that we like to talk about is the rainbow, and the rainbow has several colors that always been displayed in it. And so the issue is, how do we see colors? Is the idea of we see different colors because part of our eyes are called sensitive to different wavelengths of the light, and as a result we are seeing those type of colors. So this is a great video from Brown University on the issue of colors and how do we see colors. I highly recommend to you to see this video because it's really all about our perspective and what do we actually see. A color has a scale, and it can be based on red, yellow, or blue, and this is the traditional in the field of art. And again, if we remember high school or elementary school, we talked about Newton development, and he already embedded the idea that we have a spectrum of colors that are part of our how do we see and how do we accept the idea. So this is the idea of colors, this color schema, and we are able to divide them into primary colors and secondary colors. Primary colors is usually red, yellow, and blue. This is the traditional color theory, and it is used to, and when we mix them up, we are able to create additional colors. Secondary colors is considered to be green, orange, and purple, and those can be mixed with primarily colors. So during the mix, we are able to take red and yellow to create orange, or take blue and yellow and to create green, take blue and red and create purple. And again, this is the way for us to do that. There is the idea of secondary and primary, first and second, but there's also the issue of where it all comes down to another dimension of the colors and how it applied. Uh, there is also the issue of how the colors are paired when we are laying them out on a table or on a scale. And the idea here is that each color are located directly across each other than on the color wheel, and this is the idea. So red matches to the green, yellow to the purple, blue to the orange. And this is something that if you look at that and just think about, example, color of team, color of sport teams, color of cars. Usually they are paired with other colors to make the particular object stand out. Again, there is the issue of organizing the colors to sorted colors in order for us to make a stronger case. And one of the things that if you are looking at TV shows that talks about decorating your house or decorating your clothes, we are talking often about cold colors versus warm colors. And again, this is the division, the classification of colors and how people perceive colors in that. So warm colors, it's red, orange, and yellow, compared to cold color, blue and green. And those can reflect it on arts, but also on colors of products that try to portray some emotion into it. Ways to alter colors is the idea of going into the idea of tanning, shading, and tuning in order for us to succeed. So the idea of adding white to the main color will add some dimension to the color that you're going to select in the end. So example, if you add some white to the red, it will again had some effect on the overall performance of the red. Shading is another way for us to do that, and again, you see that in a lot of advertising, that they are using shading as the technique to add more dimension, or the illusion of dimension to the object. And by doing that, we can do that. So this is the relationship between the shading and the tanning, using the white or using the black as the effect can create those ideas. And tone is the idea of creating both white and black, which is gray, and adding the gray to downscale the color, the main color of the object. And we often do that. One of the things that we often see as a result of those addition is the idea that we have colors of all colors, which is in a single shade. And the idea is that those are the aspect of adding the white, adding the black, and adding the gray into it. In order for us to apply that, we can add those white, black, and shade into 2 or more colors in order for us to get better effect. And you can do that also without colors, but use only white and black and gray in order for us to do that. Natural colors is usually the idea of brown, black, gray, and white, and the idea is that we are trying to get more warm in it in order to do that. But in the end of the day, we will talk about 2 types of graphics, which is the software application that we are often applied to it. We are in computer graphics, we are talking two types, vector versus raster. And the idea of a raster is the bitmap, and usually it's based on a pixel, which is the smallest display element that can be seen in a monitor, computer monitor, or TV. So the raster image is a resolution depending on the content of a fixed number of pixels. So if we will break down to it, we will see each pixel in order for us to understand that. Adobe Photoshop is the best example of raster or bitmap software application. Why? Because it breaks down each visualization into pixel in order for us to do that. But we have also vector, and this is where the mathematical aspect come into the display. In comparison, the raster versus the vector, usually the vector is a mathematical formula in compared to the raster, which is a grid based on the pixel. And the resolution in raster is dependent, in the resolution in vector is independent. So the raster is full size is relatively large, in file size is relatively small in vector. So in this case, the vector is often associated with object oriented. So vector, what it is and what it is intend to do. So it can allow us to produce 2D and 3D. It allowed us to edit and be able to create the point, the path, and the shape. An example, the original image, we can resize it to the size that we want, and we can reshape the image in order for you to do that. In raster or in pixel visualization, this is really hard, and this is why most of the logos, companies' logos, are created with using vector graphics, so people will be able to play with it. And a pure example of it is that USF changed logos in the last year 2 times or 3 times, and they had to go over throughout the production. But what it meant is that the graphic designer in those logo had to reshape the Adobe Illustrator in order for them to reshape the logo. So ability of vector is the ability of scale, ability of logos, ability to clip arts, and graphic on website. It is small file that allowed to quick load time, and which is quite an issue used to be in the past. Fonts is usually also used in vector in order for us to do that. So the advantage of vector is a scalability, ability to change size easily, which is quite important element. It allowed us to edit, since each vector is made up of separate an object, so we can edit each object independently at any time, which is really important compared to the pixels. And it has small file size, which is can transfer to the internet. So this is the issue. But the issue of the disadvantage of vector is lower color quality compared to the pixel. And so this is something that we need to be aware of, and it has limited in the type of effect that can be applied to. Common vector files is AI, which is Adobe Illustrator had its shop, and in we also have the EPS format, which is probably when you go to print your work, is usually the most common type of file. Again, this is a file format that usually entail, but what type of vectors are we talking, and what we are going to see? So usually the vector has with an arrow. So the direction of the arrow is the direction of the vector, and the length is the magnitude. So multiples of vectors usually allowed us to have the ability to manipulate the vector. We can have negative or positive numbers in when we do the revision of the directions, and adding more mathematical formula into the equation, and we will see that in open source R, where we can add multiple dimension to the outlook of the image. That is really important. So we have combination, components, and everything else that can be applied with regard to the idea of Adobe Illustrator and the idea of a vector into the piece. I'm going to present in the canvas. In the PowerPoint, you will have a video from University of Michigan, and I also going to use a video that the University of South Florida created, and you'll be able to enjoy that too. So this is something that you'll be able to share. And when you download the application, you sometimes have the application in Getaway, and you'll be able to download the Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Cloud into your computer. So let's start with the idea of how do we start a project in Adobe Illustrator. So the idea of Adobe Illustrator, the issue of a file, usually it asks you the width and the height and the orientation and how do you want to present that, and you can have more settings and how to apply to it. And again, you can have, what I want you to do is look at the color mode. You can have the RGB color mode, which is the most popular type, or more specifically or less high quality is the CMYK, which is probably not very often used. We can have a scale if you want high resolution, medium resolution, and something that most software applications do not address. We can have the size and we can have the settings. What I want to go back is the idea of taking what you have created, and I started the idea of the public library website file that I created. And what we are going to do, what I want you to start thinking about, is what can we add with regard to visual elements or visual object that will make the user more familiar with your visualization of a map. One of the biggest problems with a map is sometimes it doesn't communicate so well. I will share with you also example example of infographics maps. And this is site with interactive and how they play with colors in order for them to see how they can be applied. And there is a good example, bad examples, and I want you to think about the rules that he lay out for us in order for us to create better communication and how to do that. One of the things that Adobe Illustrator allowed us to do is to create additional objects. And in object, I can add dimension of a library. For example, a library is often a building that I can illustrate in Adobe Illustrator, and there is rules about that. I will not show you because it will take a longer time. There's a lot of videos about that. You can have a small image that will make the communication with the Adobe Illustrator, the end product, more transparent and more easy to understand. I leave it up to you. I want to see an example, just the title and more clear definition on what you have found. And I hope you enjoy that. This is your exploration, and I hope you enjoy that. That's it for now. I hope you enjoy that. That was a long video. So the assignment: add text, add graphical dimensions such as house that represent the library or anything else, and make the map more transparent by using Adobe Illustrator compared to Tableau that is flat out what it captured in the data set. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, have fun.